all the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. I'm truly delighted to be here at this WRI Connect Karo, which has been going on for over a decade actually, and is really an occasion to connect with all the thinkers and all the people who are doing work in the field of nature, people, climate action, many other areas. So let me congratulate WRI for a very sterling work that it has been doing in India. And I've been personally involved in a range of areas with both OP and Madhav when I was CEO Niti Aayog, and in a whole range of areas, even in G20. First of all, congratulations WRI, because under the leadership of Jamshed, and it's a real pleasure interacting with Jamshed, because he's one of those private sector entrepreneurs who's always thought ahead of his time. He's always thought big, extremely progressive, forward thinking person on all issues which will impinge us in due course. So first of all, let me say that India as a country occupies just 1.3% of the total carbon space available. We are logically entitled on a per capita income to occupy about 17.5% of the carbon space. We occupy only 1.3%. But the way we are going to urbanize, the way we are going to industrialize, we will become the third biggest carbon emitter in the world in due course, and we will become the largest emitter in due course. And it's important that India as a country, both from a perspective of climate action and from the perspective of technologically leapfrogging, it's very important that we make substantial difference as far as action on climate front is concerned. It's also important to understand that renewables are important. But even if you were to do 100% renewable, 100%, if all your electricity was to go renewable, and we've done very well. We've done 175 gigawatt of renewable energy, we achieved our NDC target 9 years ahead of schedule. What we had to achieve in 2030, we achieved in 2021. We are the only G20 country in the climate change performance index, only G20 country. So while other countries have been talking about it, and the Western world in particular has been talking about it, India has actually been delivering. And we are way ahead. But irrespective of that, India must become the first country in the world to industrialize without carbonizing. And this, to my mind, is important because India must leapfrog very substantially in this. But even if we were to do 100% renewable, electricity is only 20% of our energy. It's very important to understand this. So 100% electricity going renewable is just 20% of your energy. The balance 80% of your energy is all hard to abate sectors. That's refinery, that's steel, that's cement, that's long distance transport, that's fertilizer. So the important thing is that we must be able to decarbonize all hard to abate sectors, and that's very critical. That's critical because India as a country imports about 180 to 200 billion worth of fossil fuel energy. What the Prime Minister has said is that by the time we become 100, in 2047, we must become an exporter of energy, not an importer of energy, but an exporter of energy. Because the world is transitioning. Everyone is going through a technological shift. And if you take leadership position in energy, you will be way ahead of others, and you will actually become an exporter. And the reason why you will become an exporter is because India is climatically blessed. India is climatically blessed. No other country other than Saudi Arabia has that kind of climatic conditions which India has, number one. Number two, India's private sector entrepreneurship is top class, really top class. What they have delivered is really top class, and they are capable of doing it. Now, So what India needs to do is get onto this business of speeding up renewables but simultaneously decarbonizing hard to abate sectors. We use about 11% of the world's grey hydrogen in our refinery, and if we were to convert that grey hydrogen into green hydrogen, it will be a very big leap forward. Similarly, we need to decarbonize our fertilizer, our steel, our cement, our long distance transport. All this needs to be decarbonized. This is critical. And this would require a huge thrust on green hydrogen. Now the green hydrogen is important because you can use renewable to crack water, produce green hydrogen, and then not only supply to all these hard to abate sectors, but in its liquefied form, ammonia, you can export to the rest of the world. Because by 2026, Europe is going to put border taxes and you will not be able to export steel or any other products to Europe. And the world is going to, Europe, America, all these countries will be looking for decarbonized products. There are two challenges. Firstly is the challenge that while we are advancing ahead, United States and America and many other countries are pushing for protectionism. These are countries which call themselves as champions of laissez-faire, but they've been pushing for protectionism as far as energy transition is concerned. If you were to read the Inflation Reduction Act, it's a highly protectionist piece of literature which says that I'll support green hydrogen only that which is produced in the United States of America, which is now impacting green hydrogen projects across Australia, India, Korea, many other countries, and therefore the world as a whole needs to push for free trade. When you're pushing for size and scale, you need to push for size and scale, and you need to push for global movement on this, not protectionism. And that is very important. Number two is that it's important that while India has the ambition and we will not carbonize the world has been carbonized when the Western world was urbanizing, when the Western world was manufacturing. So, United States of America, there are 1100 cars for 1,000 people. In Europe, there are 900 cars for 1,000 people. In India, there are only 22 cars for 1,000 people. So, we've not carbonized the world. But we as a nation take the challenge of pushing ahead on all these things. But for being able to do that, our private entrepreneurs need long-term financing. Now, long-term financing is necessary because your projects will have to be long-term. You need projects of 25, 30 years to do green hydrogen. And you don't have lending of more than 3 to 4 years available, and you don't have large-scale lending. Now, the multilateral institutions are designed for poverty alleviation post-World War II. They are not designed for climate action. They were post-World War II institutions, post-Bretton Woods period institutions. They are not designed for climate action at all. And therefore, they all do direct lending. They do not do indirect lending. There is also no shortage of capital. There's $350 trillion available in the world through private sector. $150 trillion is available with institutional lenders and pension funds. But they need de-risking, because the risk of developed world is you get interest at 2%, in India you get at 8%, Africa you get at 16%, sub-Saharan countries you get at 22% because there are different risks. But if you look around the world, you will find that the emerging markets are growing at a faster rate than the developed world. The developed world has peaked, it has polluted the world, its growth is coming down. Emerging markets, the demographics are young, very young demographics in Asia and in Africa, their growth is going up. So the growth is going up. But the international financial architecture is such that the resources are going from developing world to the developed world. The developed world is causing inflation and is raising interest rates and leading to resources flowing from developing world to the developed world. It has to be, as the IMF has rightly said, the resources need to flow from the developed world to the developing world to enhance acceleration of pace of growth in emerging markets. And acceleration of growth means that the growth which is very climate friendly, which is decarbonized growth, and where resources flow for climate action, and that would require lending multilateral institutions to lend for climate action using instruments like MIGA for blended finance, for first loss guarantees, for credit enhancement. All this is very, very critical. Because without that, you will not be able to do foreign exchange fluctuations on a long-term basis, to be able to do long-term funding, and to get into a long-term cutting-edge technology. You need cutting-edge technology for renewable, for green hydrogen. You need it for transportation so that emerging markets can make a quantum jump forward. Our entrepreneurs are good enough to go and get technology, but they need long-term resources, and that is critical. That is critical. And to my mind, I think India is on the right path because we made radical shift in renewables by achieving 175 gigawatt. This has been achieved by policy framework, but this has been delivered by the private sector of India, which has been very dynamic. And I'm absolutely sure that India's private sector will also deliver on green hydrogen. The cost of green hydrogen right now is about $4.5 per kilogram. The challenge is to bring it by 2030 to $1 per kilogram. $1 per kilogram means that you need to build size and scale, you need to do electrolyzer manufacturing, you need to push for greater renewables, all this. And private sector is doing this. They are pushing for pump storage in a very big way, which means that you won't be dependent then on nickel, cobalt and ilmenite. But you can then, your pump storage gives you the advantage because you're a large country. Pump storage gives you the time span of about 100 years and is 40% cheaper than battery storage. And that is what I think the attempt in India is to, how do you become the cheapest cost producer of green hydrogen for many of our hard to abate sector, but also become a key exporter in due course. Some of the points made here are very critical, and that is that India process of urbanization has just begun. And in the next 5 to 6 decades, we'll see 500 million Indians getting into the process of urbanization. 500 million means that you have to create 2 Americas. And when that happens, we should not make the same mistake which United States made. They made cities for cars, not for people. We need to create cities for people. You need the urban planning has to be compact, it has to be dense, it has to be walk to work, and it has to be based around public transportation. So I agree with everything which Jamshed said about public transportation. Public transportation has to be the basis of everything. But I don't agree with this philosophy of giving everything free to people. You know, the minute you give things free, people will not realize the value. You can charge low price for small distance travel, higher price costing for long distance transport, but everybody must pay. Indians must learn to pay. Because as it is, your road transport are the worst managed. They are not financially well managed. They are all bankrupt. And if you don't charge people, and if Indians don't pay for infrastructure, for their own cities' infrastructure, all of us must pay for our cities' infrastructure to ensure world-class infrastructure. And that's a responsibility all of us must take. One second. All of us must take for this, because in the long run we must build top-class cities. And this public transportation, look around all cities. We need to move towards electric transportation. That's why we did this buses of 5,500 buses. All buses. Cities had different. All the cities which participated in this tender had different floor sizes. Some had front entries, some had back entries, some had different standards, some had different size. It took us about 110 meetings with 7 cities to get them all together. And all of them agreed. And that's how we were able to get 5,500 buses and reduce the price. Similarly, in the next round, the aim should be 50,000 buses, a lakh of buses to be able to make India the center for electric bus manufacturing. And India has the potential to be the electric bus manufacturing city. And the minute we are able to do this, you will see a difference in our cities. You will see a difference in our cities, and that requires us to do different nature of urban planning. That is, revolve your cities around electric buses. Cities are meant to be for walking, they are meant to be for cycling, they are meant to be for electric buses and not for cars. That's my belief. Second point which was made was about life, which is very important to my mind, because the International Energy Association study has just showed that by simply changing lifestyles, we can save about 20% of the energy. 20% energy. Lifestyles, because you go across to New York, you'll see all buildings lights are on. All buildings lights are on. Taps are on in many other cities. So simply changing lifestyles for a better world of tomorrow will make a difference. So my belief is that India must take leadership position. Technologically, this is an area where we must leapfrog. We must become the champion of climate action. We must become the champion of energy transition. We must become a champion of green hydrogen. We must become a champion of public transportation. We must, and that is how we will provide a better life to our citizens for the future. And that the better life for our citizens means that the challenge today is that the world may survive, but all of us as human beings will go extinct by 2050. That is the challenge before the world. And it's the biggest challenge confronting the world today. If you have to ensure that human beings survive, we need all to take radical measures, and India must be in the leadership position. Thank you very much.